Well, it's time for UCF's first real test of the season, but how tough of a test is it going up against the North Carolina Tar Heels and head coach Bill Belichick? Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Charge On. As always, I am your host, Sean Green, and as always, we are presented by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Guys, there are so many bets that you can make this weekend on FanDuel. UCF is favored by 6.5. We're going to get to all of that, but there are some interesting lines for this game that you should go make on FanDuel, a proud sponsor of the Charge On podcast. As always, with me, Nick Geddes. Took a week off, took a little break from the pod. He deserves it. Kind of gave my my rest of season prediction on last week's show, if you guys want to go look at that. But Nick, it's a big week. It's a big week. Interesting week. And we're gonna get into it. But this was kind of the game everybody had, circled. This is kind of the Colorado game from last year in terms of just hype, national TV, everything that goes about it. This is kind of the game that everybody was looking forward to and had circled. But how are you doing, and how excited are you to kind of get some real football? Not that the first 2 weeks wasn't, but getting an actual, P4 opponent into the bounce house.
Well, let's not disrespect Jacksonville State like that. Let's not do that. Evident by their win over Liberty, they might be a little better than we thought. So, listen, let's not disrespect Jacksonville State. But I know what you mean. This is the game we've sort of been waiting for because we thought this was going to be the first test for UCF. But then again, no idea what North Carolina looks like. You said this is kind of like, it reminds you of last year, kind of same situation going against Colorado. I don't think it's the same hype necessarily, because if there was one thing I knew during that game, I knew Colorado had names and players that we all knew, and I was confident they were a good team, and I think that showed throughout last season. We've already gotten a chance to see North Carolina play what I think is a quality opponent, and we'll get into it, obviously, but I'm not sure that North Carolina is exactly a good football team at this moment. So, and I don't know yet what UCF is either. So I guess what I'm saying, Sean, is I don't know what I'm going to see on Saturday when these two teams take the field. It's really hard to still do that.
So that's the interesting thing about this game. And I definitely want to acknowledge that, yes, in terms of hype and stuff like that, the Colorado game, beats this by a lot. Obviously, the expectation was UCF was going to be potentially competing for a Big 12 title game. You had big noon kickoff on campus. The hype was immense. This, I think, is more so the Bill Belichick effect and North Carolina coming in and finally getting to play North Carolina after twice game getting canceled for hurricanes.
It's true.
But to Nick's point, and we're going to kind of get into North Carolina, but North Carolina, I think, granted, just like we're saying about UCF, every team in college, the goal is to just get better gradually as the season progresses. And we've gotten 3 chances to see North Carolina. We've gotten 2 chances to see UCF against, let's be real, not really world beater opponents. UCF has faced 2 opponents. Jack State is an okay football team. They lost last week, but put up a solid fight. North Carolina A&T, let's not face it, they're not a good football team. And their starting quarterbacks got knocked out, pretty quickly. But North Carolina, we did see them face a Power 4 opponent, a Big 12 opponent in TCU week 1, and they lost 48-14. They got absolutely killed. It wasn't a game. Let's get into it. Let's just do it. Because I think we need to talk through it, because we don't know if UCF is a good football team. We have zero idea. And that's what I think makes this game kind of difficult, is because I think me and you, Nick, are on kind of the same page. I personally do not think, after watching the film on North Carolina, because I've watched a lot of North Carolina film over the last 3 weeks. I basically watched all of their games the last 3 weeks. I don't know how people would think that this is a good football team. This is not a good football team at all. This is not a good football team. I think they've improved in areas, which we'll get into, Nick. But have you seen any improvements from, obviously they've played Charlotte and Richmond in the last couple weeks. What a lot can be improved from TCU. But have you seen some improvements with this team?
I mean, there's going to be some obvious improvements because of the competition they faced, right? And that's what makes it really tricky. Like, I don't want to like gloss over, 2 games that they won or anything like that, against Charlotte and Richmond. But it's hard not to like focus almost solely on what we saw against TCU. But again, the counter to that was that was the first time that this entirely new team, this new coach who's never done this at the collegiate level, all of that was coming together, and there was so much hype. It was Labor Day, ESPN, they sent a quasi game day crew there for the whole thing, right? And it went horribly wrong. So it's like, how much can you take away from their first game? It's like, is it fair to judge UCF the first time that they're all together with a new coaching staff and new players, and then fair to judge, how do you judge then North Carolina doing the same thing also against a really good head coach in Sonny Dykes and a really good team, I think, in TCU. So you can look at it both ways. What I will say is, okay, you get pummeled at home, right? Defensively, you just don't match up in the trenches against a team like TCU. That was evident. Gio Lopez overrun, and then eventually Max Johnson comes in, lights a spark. They had a lot of issues tackling, as I recall, in that football game. I think that was the big thing that stood out to me in the TCU game. But then they go next week and they play Charlotte, and Charlotte's probably one of the worst teams in FBS. I think that's fair to say. And it was 20-3. It doesn't exactly jump out to you. Gio Lopez did play better in that football game, to be fair to him. But then he took a little bit of a step back last week against Richmond, albeit in a 41-6 victory, which was going to happen. So it's really hard to diagnose both of these teams. But if I have to go off of what I've seen, I don't think North Carolina is a good football team because of what we saw in week 1 when they faced, a quality opponent.
Here's what I'll say. I am not saying North Carolina is a bad football team based off of week 1, because let's be real here. I think after UCF's week 1 performance, I think that same result would have happened if UCF faced TCU, right? So like there is kind of that, they have 70 new players. UCF has 69 new players. And I think there's a lot to really look at and say, listen, like it takes time with a new team with that many players, especially in college football, to kind of find a footing. I do think that North Carolina has shown some improvement in certain areas. I think the tackling was better the last couple of weeks. Let's call it like it was. Defense has not allowed a touchdown in 2 weeks. That is something to say. I get the level of competition, Charlotte and Richmond, and I understand. I do completely understand that aspect. But if you go watch those games, and this is kind of where we're going to get into the team, we're going to get into the stats and everything. Go watch the team and go watch them play Richmond. And you really will realize that Richmond just made all the mistakes that made it 41-6. Richmond moved the ball, Nick. If you go watch, Richmond moved the ball down the field, and in Bill Belichick fashion, the bend don't break. You get within the 20-yard line of the red zone, and you find a way to limit opportunities and limit points. But I think ultimately it came down to Richmond just not very good, and UNC was able to kind of take advantage. But the defense is not, again, this is going to seem like we are just going off on how bad UNC is. I think it's as simple as we kind of have more to look at with UNC compared to how we're going to find out this week if UCF is either good, bad, or average. Like, you're really going to figure that out. If they go in and they struggle against UNC, then UCF is probably just not a very good football team. And there's a chance that is true. Like, there's a chance that UCF is not very good. But there's more to look at with UNC right now.
Yeah, but I should also point out, because you asked, have you seen any like improvement from them over the last 2 weeks? What I will tell you, what was not present against TCU was any semblance of a run game. In that game, they rushed 28 times for 50 yards. That was it. Since then,
they figured it out.
But a lot of it came down to they found their guy, and his name is Damon June, who is a true freshman, and he came in and he did not even get a snap, I believe, in that game against TCU. He's a freshman, and within a few weeks, he's now UNC's leading rusher. He had 148 yards against Richmond. He's a big running back who can move as well. So that, I think, is the big thing. Is UNC, I think, has found an identity on offense, and I think they've discovered that, okay, we're not going to be able to just throw this across the field, all day with Gio Lopez, or if he's going to be the guy over Max Johnson for now, right? And so we've got to find a different way to move the football, and I think they found that right now with Damon June, and something that they can build off of. So that is sort of something to watch for, and especially in this matchup, because I know you've sort of lamented, the run defense for UCF in the first 2 weeks. Maybe that's one area where they could have some improvement. Granted, they were facing two offenses who were almost exclusively running the football against them, but it might be a thing where you see a similar look in here, because if I'm UNC, I'm going to lean on that young kid in my offensive line over trying to put the ball into the hands of Gio Lopez and asking him to win it for you.
Let's kind of go through UNC a little bit. I want to apologize to Tar Heel fans that are coming in here thinking we are poo-pooing all over your football team and your football program. I want to be very clear. I'm a Patriots fan. Those of you who are fans of Charge On, you know this. Bill Belichick I love Bill Belichick. It's like my love for Tom Brady. I love Bill. I love Tom. Bill has rubbed me wrong the last month. He's rubbed me wrong. Does it bring me joy and pleasure to see UNC struggle? Kind of. Honestly, kind of. But take that out of it. We are basing this solely off of UNC versus UCF.
What a thing to say.
With that being said.
Spoiled fan.
With that being said, I am excited for Bill to kind of come to Orlando. I've seen a different energy with him. I do think he's going to be able to help these kids in a certain way. You kind of see especially on defense, he's taken some kids that were from lower level colleges, brought them up, and is coaching them up. So I like to see that. But let's kind of get into the actual roster, Nick. Because Bill Belichick, let's be real here. I think there is the Bill Belichick question of how much does Bill Belichick scare you, get in your head mentally as a coach, player? There is that aspect because he's the greatest coach of all time. Let's talk Gio Lopez, because this is the guy that they handpicked to come from South Alabama, one of the top quarterbacks in the transfer portal. And I'll be honest, Nick, again, not trying to be negative Nancy over here. I don't think he looks very good. I think Max Johnson looked better. I think he might be a better fit for this offense. He doesn't look very fast. He looks very slow. He's gone 31 of 53 for 343, 3 touchdowns and an interception. On the ground, he's run it 27 times for 74 yards and a touchdown. What have you seen from Gio? I honestly, if I can give my 2 cents, I think he is overthinking a lot when he's out there. It looks like his processing is not going as quick as it needs to go, or he's overthinking things. I think what made him really good at South Alabama was his ability to kind of make something out of nothing, get out, do something crazy with it, and he was also really quick. What have you seen from him? The last 3 weeks, he just doesn't look... like you said, the start of the game, he looked better, but the offense wasn't very productive. What have you seen from Gio these first kind of 3 weeks?
I mean, it sort of looks like a quarterback who's playing with new players and a new offense and everything like that, and they just have not been able to find a rhythm. I mean, I think the thing that sticks out, and he was self-admittedly even talking about this too, is, he's got to play, a little faster. Like, the ball's got to get out, and he's got to be confident in his reads and where he's going with things. And I think, like I said, he said that this week, so that's not just me saying it. That's the big thing with him, because right now, you ask what I've seen from him, I mean, nothing great. And I think even UNC fans would say that if you ask them, are you excited? Are you inspired by anything that Gio Lopez has shown you so far? The answer is no. Like I had mentioned earlier, I think there were some flashes of progress in, the Charlotte game. And he had a big play that he made to Chris Culliver for 51 yards in that football game. But, all the other completions just about were were less than 10 yards. So it's not exactly an offense that pushes it down the field, go vertical. So, especially given the way I think UCF's front seven has played in the first 2 weeks, and I'm going to put, again, a caveat on that. The North Carolina A&T game, you probably just throw out the window completely. But you saw it even against Jacksonville State. They can make some stuff happen, whether it's Nigel Kelly, Malachi Lawrence on the outside, and, of course, our boy Horace Lockett doing things in the interior and all the other guys. Yeah, I love how, I just had to get Horace Lockett's name in there the show. I just had to do it. So, I think it's gonna be a challenge for Gio in this one. We don't know if UCF is a good team, but I'm starting to see sort of position groups that I am confident in that feel like they're better this year than they were last year. And I actually think defensively, like as I've been saying, I think they're leading the way for UCF, and I feel really confident what they can do in this one.
Yeah, that's going to be a massive one. I think the UNC offensive line is okay. I think they've got a couple players on there that I think are pretty good on the offensive line. I think especially with a running quarterback like this, you really haven't seen it in the first 2 weeks. This is going to be a big test for them. And like I said, I think Gio is a talented quarterback. I think given time, I think he can improve. I think just like you kind of said, things are happening a little too slow for him. And I think the sooner it gets kind of picked up and he kind of gets more comfortable, I think it'll be improved. But the passing game is not there. I think he threw it 19 times last week and they ran it 31-32. I think, like you said, and we'll talk running backs right now, Damon June, they found kind of what they want to do. He reminds me a lot, and again, a Patriots reference, you're going to kind of hear those. He's very LeGarrette Blount-esque, big body back, north to south. It doesn't really cut to the outside. So that's why the defensive line, Nick, is going to be huge, because you're really going to get a lot of runs up the middle. It's not going to be a lot to the outside. He can if he needs to, but this is a downhill runner that you're just going to need to tackle.
Yeah, he was fun to watch. I went back and watched some of his stuff against Richmond, and he was fun to watch. And like I said, I think he's brought new life to that offense, and I think they have at least an identity that they can give the ball to this guy and at least have something that they can go to. And that's not to diminish the other guys, because, I should have mentioned, if there's a receiver that Gio Lopez has at least developed somewhat of a rapport with, it's probably Jordan Shipp, and they've connected with a couple touchdowns in these games so far. But I think if you're North Carolina, I think this is the thing that you want to try to exploit is can you build off of what Jacksonville State did and run the football against this UCF team. And I think Damon June, he's going to be ready for this opportunity, because this might be the first game he might get at least the starting reps immediately and come in and do that. I think you're going to see that on Saturday.
Yeah, the other closest guy is Davion Gauss, and it's 15 carries, 43 yards. He runs it about 5 times a game. So June is going to be the guy you're going to see for a majority of the game. You mentioned Jordan Shipp, 10 receptions for 149 yards and 2 touchdowns in 3 weeks. The next closest guy in terms of just receptions is Javarius Green, 6 receptions for 88 yards. So again, then Chris Culver, 4 receptions for 89 yards and a touchdown. If that tells you anything, it just shows you that the passing game has been a struggle. They haven't passed the ball really too efficiently or effectively. But Jordan Shipp is kind of the guy that if you're on the lookout, the ball is probably getting thrown his way. So definitely UCF, which they've been good. UCF has been good. The safeties and the corners have been really good at making sure that really there's been no resemblance of a passing offense the last, the first 2 games. But again, there's the question mark. You're playing, teams that you should not really allow to pass the ball efficiently. So there is that. Let's kind of talk about the defense, Nick, because the defense, I do think, in terms of North Carolina defenses, and this is where you got to give them credit, some credit. North Carolina's defenses are usually really bad, really bad. You go back and you look at some of the North Carolina teams that had good offenses with Drake May and Mitch Trubisky, and you go down the list. The defenses were always the problem with those teams because they never had any resemblance of a defense to stop anybody on the other side. So it'd always get into an offensive shootout, and that's where usually North Carolina would lose some games that you could argue they shouldn't have. I think this team, this defense, they have a Bill Belichick, Steve Belichick defense. Bend, don't break. On third down, we'll get into all of. I wrote down basically a lot of technically meaningless stats, but a couple things. I think they've shown improvement the last 2 weeks. Obviously, like I said, they haven't allowed a touchdown the last 2 games. That's hard to do. Like, even against North Carolina A&T, even though it was third stringers, UCF did allow a touchdown at the end of the game. So, that is still challenging. That is still difficult to not allow a touchdown. What have you seen from the defense? I do think that there are ways that UCF can exploit them. I think at times they don't have a lot of penalties, but I think the DBs do get a little handsy, which I think can help UCF, especially for a UCF team that likes to throw the football. What have you seen from this Tar Heel defense?
Yeah, like you mentioned, I think regardless of who you're playing, if you don't go 2 games without scoring a touchdown, you're doing something right. And I think that was a response that they needed after the TCU loss. It definitely was a response they needed. So credit to the defensive unit. I think the defensive line, against TCU, I kind of had mentioned it looked like they were struggling to hold up in the trenches. But, at least the last couple of weeks, I think that's actually turned into maybe a little bit of a strength here. And I highlighted his name is hard to say, and I feel horrible that I might butcher this completely. I did look up a pronunciation, though. I cheated.
If I know who you're going to say, you better say it right because, he's an Orlando native, I think. But
okay, well, I didn't go too far to see who was coming from out of where like that. But Melkart Abu Jaude.
Never mind. That's not who I thought you were going to say.
That's not who you were thinking of?
Nope. But he had a really good, the guy who you just said had a really good game against
Yes.
Richmond.
Yes, he had a really good game against Richmond. He had 3 tackles, 2 sacks, and a fumble recovery.
Great story, too.
Yeah, comes from, I think he was a transfer from Delaware.
Yeah.
Delaware transfer, so it's a lot of production there, and obviously got up to or at least got back on track here against Richmond last week, but 6 hurries as well, 5 tackles or 10 tackles total this year for them. He sort of, to me, has jumped out, but I think they have some other dudes as well. And again, on the defensive line, Xavier Lewis, Isaiah Johnson, in the linebacking core, Andrew Simpson is a guy who's sort of, he's their leading tackler coming into this one. So I think they have seen some pretty, substantial improvement, obviously, over what happened against TCU, but that's sort of some of the things that I've seen with them and some of the players that stuck out to me.
Yeah, the Orlando guy that I was talking about was Dontre Robinson, 11 tackles. I think UCF was definitely going after him. When Gus Malzahn was here, that was a guy that UCF was definitely looking to go after. He's kind of getting some meaningful reps. Caleb Cost is their leading defensive back. A lot of people thought he was kind of like an NFL guy. I've seen some good things out of him. But again, I think the DBs I've seen early have gotten really handsy. Granted, that's kind of just nature of being a DB in the year 2025. But they got called for it a couple times against Richmond. I think UCF will be able to take advantage of that this weekend. But yeah, I think ultimately, that's going to be the challenge for UCF, Nick. Because I do think out of both units, I think the defense for UNC is better than the offense. And then on UCF side, I think you can say that the defense is probably better than the offense. So you've got 2 teams that you were kind of expecting before the season, or just in general, you were expecting a Bill Belichick defense going up against Scott Frost offense, which you're going to get. But I think it's a little bit more than that. You've got 2 defenses that are improving, that have some good things about them. Do you kind of see it as more of a defensive matchup? I think the over-under right now is 47.5, which we're not giving a pick on that yet, but 47.5 is low for a UCF game, but clearly they're looking at this as a low-scoring matchup.
What was the line for that?
47.5 over-under.
47.5, you said?
Yeah.
Interesting.
So to go over that, it'd be like a 27-24 type of game.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of, we'll get to game picks here in just a second, but that's kind of where I've earmarked it. I feel really good. I don't know. I really love where UCF's defense is at.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I think we kind of said that outside of Damon June and what they can do in the running game, there's not anything here that necessarily scares me. And then
why don't we do picks? Why don't we do picks then?
Well, I'm going to get there. I'll follow through with my pick here, or follow into my pick here. But I was going to say there's a lot of unknowns, and like I know we've spent a lot of time talking about. This is almost crazy. We've spent all this time talking about UNC, and try to because we've worked to try to familiarize ourselves with the opponent this week, and we haven't really talked much of like what UCF has going on, and like the fact that we don't know who's going to be playing quarterback on Saturday. We do. I mean, we probably do, but
they're not saying it.
They're not saying it. So,
I just want to throw out there, depth chart wise, do not look at the depth chart and think it is accurate. The depth chart does not matter. Remember last year, it doesn't mean anything. They throw the depth chart out there just so people being like, "Oh, Cam Fancher's quarterback one." The depth chart will look the same until
we're gonna act as if I think it's why we probably didn't talk about it because we're gonna act as if Taven Jackson's going to be quarterback one and he's not. I have some issues. I'm gonna have some issues if the first quarterback out there is Cam Fancher if he's healthy. I want him to be healthy, of course, but just want to see Taven playing. Anyway, there's so many unknowns, but the one thing I do know, Sean, and I'm pretty confident in, I think the best player overall on either offense in this game is Miles Montgomery. And based on what I saw last time I saw Jaden Nixon, I'm very excited to continue that development for UCF. I think they have the speed advantage on offense. I think that's fair to say. And offensive line, we've been a little hard on them for sure over these first 2 weeks and some of the rotations. And we should obviously mention our best wishes to Sean Clark. I don't think either of us have any idea what's going on here, but obviously they said it was a medical issue.
Yeah,
we're not going to speculate, but best wishes to him. I'm thinking the offensive line maybe gives a renewed effort this week against North Carolina. Hopefully they can figure out this guard rotation of who they want to go with, and we can lock that down. So, game picks. I've been sort of all over the place in my head with this one. I'm going to go UCF 31, North Carolina 20. 31-20.
Mine's long. So I went and I looked at team rankings, which you really, let's be real here, you shouldn't do 3 weeks into the season because it absolutely means nothing. Like, for the most part, it doesn't. Team rankings mean nothing in terms of total offense, total defense, stuff like that. Because UCF has played 2 games, North Carolina has played 3. Opponents, some teams are playing top-tier opponents, then you have UCF playing North Carolina A&T. So in terms of that, you can't look at it too intently. I do have some interesting things, though, that I got from it. And I wrote down a lot of it. Obviously, passing yards allowed. UCF is 3rd in the country right now. That makes sense. UCF is 3rd in the country in passing yards allowed. North Carolina is 64th. So they're kind of middle of the pack. I think UCF is going to be able to pass the ball on UNC. Total offense. UCF is 21st. North Carolina is 126th. Again, UCF had 17 points in game 1 and 68 in game 2. I think that definitely helped that total offense. North Carolina, though, even against the bad teams like a Charlotte, struggled. I mean, they put up 41 last week, but they put 41 up against Richmond. So you do have to take that into account because remember what we talked about not style points, but how effective was your offense? We would have said 41 against North Carolina A&T would have been good. They put up 41 against Richmond. That's good, but it all is how your offense kind of operates. Here's the big ones. Something just flew in my eye. Here's the big ones that I kind of wanted to pinpoint. Third down conversion rate. UCF is 45th. UNC is 109th. And again, you could take that and chalk that up to opponent. Well, red zone defense is one thing that they are very even on. UCF is 7th. North Carolina is 4th in the country in red zone defense. This game is coming down to who can score when you get into the red zone. It's not going to be about which team is better. It's not going to be about which team, who they played in the first couple weeks, how much they lose by against TCU. It's going to come down to when the ball gets into the red zone, which defense is better and which offense is better. And I know that's very simple, and it's honestly like I feel kind of like too simple saying that. But if you look at North Carolina stats, they're basically over 100th in everything. And that's basically because of the first game, and you chalk that up. And UCF looks, if you were to go look at UCF's team stats on everything, you'd think UCF was a top 25 team in the country with some of these. At the end of the day, North Carolina is really good at stopping teams in the red zone. Against TCU, TCU killed North Carolina. TCU was 3 of 5 in the red zone. So even North Carolina on a really bad day was able to stop TCU twice in the red zone. I think UCF, if they want to win this game, is going to have to, you can't put up field goals. I think that's something that UCF, you saw in the first game, struggled. They got on the 1 yard line, had to get back up, put up a field goal. I think that is something that is going to play a massive factor in this game. I don't think UCF is worse than North Carolina. I think North Carolina haven't played a road game. They're not going to play a road game for a minute like the Bounce House. Gio Lopez's most tough game, like craziest road environment. He played at LSU in 2024. Played at LSU in 2024. And LSU's defense last year was not very good. He went 17 of 23 for 173 and a touchdown. They lost 42-10. I'm not trying to compare South Alabama against LSU. I'm just saying Gio Lopez hasn't really played in an environment like he is going to play on Saturday. I say UCF wins this game in a long-winded way. I'm going to say UCF wins 28-24. I don't think it is this 6.5 point. I do think UCF is the better team, but I'm leaving it up also that we don't actually know how good of a team UCF is. Just like North Carolina doesn't really know how good of a team they have, because the first game, they should have gotten blown out, and then the last two, they played teams that they should have beat. So it's one of those games where you shouldn't really... It's tough because you don't know how good these teams actually are or not. I'm going off of UCF is home, and that's basically it.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard. It's like I'm trying not to go off of like preconceived notions, and
you do though.
It's hard not to, because like at the end of the day, if UCF and UNC play a game together on Saturday and it is a 4-point game, or something where it's completely even, are we gonna come back here and go, well, that's UCF's level and that's a bad thing? You look because we saw North Carolina get throttled by TCU, and UCF went out there at home and they were basically even through the entire game, right? And we would say that's a bad thing, but also coming into the season,
makes sense.
Let's just be honest. We all had this looking at a 4 or 5 win team, and it's like, okay, maybe you can get to 6, but anything further than that, probably not going to happen because this is a rebuild, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Same way UNC is doing a rebuild. So you have to try to not let preconceived notions, sort of get to you there, because I think after just a couple weeks and seeing some of the lay of the land with the Big 12 right now, we have sort of started to alter our expectations, but we have to be careful and not get ahead of ourselves.
Yeah, let's put the blinders on. Let's not kid ourselves here. We are not.
We have to, because UCF, as much as this is, we can enjoy what they did to North Carolina A&T and all that stuff, but we can't overlook the fact that they were held scoreless in the first half against Jacksonville State, all that stuff. So that's why they are such an unknown.
Let's switch it. Let's say that it's not UNC coming into town. It's TCU coming into town for this game. Neither me or Nick are picking UCF, and we're probably picking UCF to lose by 28 or more. Is that crazy to say, Nick? Or am I...
Say that again?
I'm saying if it was not UNC, say it was TCU. Say TCU is coming into town. We're probably both picking UCF to lose, and we're picking them to lose by probably more than 4 touchdowns. Or about 4 touchdowns. Probably. Like 3 to 4 touchdowns.
I don't think UCF... I wouldn't pick UCF to hang with them, no.
No. So that's what I'm saying. The reason we're like, this is kind of, I'm not trying, maybe me bashing North Carolina like this is bashing UCF. These are 2 comparable teams. Like, they are. They are. Like, UNC has 70 new players. UCF has 69. UCF has shown major flaws that have shown improvement from game 1 to game 2. North Carolina shows major flaws, and they played 3 games, even in their wins. So I think these are 2 comparable teams that you have one more game to look at on film for North Carolina than you do UCF. So right now, yeah, the jury's still out. Nobody knows. You have a game where UCF scored 68, and you have a game where UCF scored 17. You don't know what UCF is on offense. You hope that it's more like game 2, obviously. And you hope that maybe Taven Jackson being kind of the clear-cut starter has helped the team. I heard they had a good week of practice last week. I'm sure that's helped, having kind of the quarterback one, like just the guy. And I know Cam Fancher is now practicing again. I wonder how that is going. They haven't said if he's cleared yet. But I think all of that, including the fact that Gio Lopez, I do think quarterback matters. Taven Jackson. Oh, totally forgot to mention this. This is bad on our part. I had this written down. I didn't mention it. Taven Jackson, in his lone start last year, played Washington. Who was Washington's defensive coordinator? Steve Belichick. So there is some familiarity. He played a Steve Belichick defense. I think they scored.
Is this a Steve Belichick defense, or is this Bill's
a Steve
defense?
Belichick? Well, I mean, let's be real here. A Steve Belichick defense is a Bill Belichick defense. It's the same thing.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know if it's exactly the same thing. But...
as a Patriots fan, I can tell you it's basically the same.
Was Steve ever your DC?
Yes. Well, he was never officially, but he was a co-DC with Gerard Mayo. Taven Jackson against a Steve Belichick defense was 11 of 19 for 124 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. 6 carries for 17 yards and a touchdown. What was interesting about the game, though, and let's be real, that's how UCF fans really got to see what Taven Jackson could be. He didn't try to do anything crazy. He kind of was definitely game managing on a Washington team that was trying to had college football playoff aspirations, and he wasn't trying to lose them the game. So there is that little wrinkle that I think they know Taven Jackson, and Taven Jackson has played a defense like this. But let's not kid ourselves here. These are if UCF was far and away better than UNC, we're picking them to win by a couple touchdowns. It's at home. The crowd is going to be crazy. But I am taking into account the fact that Gio Lopez has not gone on the road in an environment like this since LSU. He has not played a Power 4 opponent on the road except for LSU in his 3 years of college football. So I am taking that into account. The atmosphere is going to be crazy on Saturday. It's going to be. And I think you can't expect a North Carolina team who, yes, played at home in a crazy atmosphere in game 1 to come in, and it's going to be a little bit of a challenge for UNC. It's going to be a learning curve. But I think there also can be a learning curve for UCF in that too, to have kind of this much hype around a game and stuff like that. So I don't know. It's one of those games I don't feel good either way. Like, I could totally see UNC winning this game by a field goal or 4 points, and I could see UCF winning this by that much, but I don't know.
My 31-20 pick already feels extreme after listening to you talk, but
I mean, I just don't think there's going to be a lot of. I think it's going to be not a defensive battle. I just think
I'm projecting, but I'm projecting into that. I'm projecting into that I think UCF is a little bit better than we thought they were.
Maybe.
And I'm sort of factoring that in. But again, I'm projecting here.
We played North Carolina A&T and put up 68. Like, I mean,
yeah, I'm only projecting. I didn't say a lot better. I said I think they are a little bit better. So I'm projecting on that Are they 11 points better than North Carolina? I don't know.
I said 28-24, and I think it basically comes down to, can North Carolina go score a touchdown to win the game? That's kind of what my mindset is. And then vice versa would be for UCF.
Listen, it's going to be fun.
Yep.
For myself, selfishly, I'm excited that we have a kickoff in the afternoon.
I am too.
Great. Cross your fingers on the weather this time. Let's please.
Luckily, it's early enough. It's early
enough. I think we're going to be okay, so we can finally start to go back to normal operations, but we've kind of been doing normal operations because of the weather and some of the new things we want to do. So hopefully that happens, but there's going to be a lot of energy in the stadium. That's for sure. There's going to be a lot of energy. We didn't need Big Noon. We didn't know.
We didn't need it. We're already on national TV, which, let's be real here, I don't think I don't know. I don't want to be on national TV right now. I really don't. But I mean, if there's going to be an opponent that you face, I guess let it be UNC, because I think you have a shot to win. All right. Let us know what you think. I think we're pretty confident about this game, but then again, we're also not confident. I know that makes no sense, but welcome to being a UCF fan. Drop your comments down below. Let us know what you think. Are you going to the game? I think it's going to be packed. I'm excited. First 2 weeks, it was funny, Nick, because who was it? We interviewed one of the players. I'm trying to remember. It was like so long ago in the week, basically. Antoine Jackson was one of them. I forgot who the other player was. I'm blanking. But basically, Dwayne Thomas Jr. Dwayne Thomas, they asked, how excited he is about the experience, for the crowd and everything. He goes, I thought it was a good crowd last week. I was like, this is awesome. And we all chuckled in the press room. And I'm like, yeah, coming from Charlotte, I'm sure the crowd against North Carolina A&T was good. But I'm I don't think a lot of these players are expecting what the Bounce House is going to offer on Saturday. So if you are going to the game, definitely be sure to be loud and make a lot of noise, which I know you guys will. But please like, subscribe, comment, share, do all that you do. We greatly appreciate it. Before we go, FanDuel picks. Quickly, Nick. FanDuel, UCF favored by -6.5. Technically, Nick has UCF -6.5. I would take UNC plus 6.5. Over under 47.5 on FanDuel. I think we both would have the over then. I think, right? I can't do quick math. You said 31-20, so yeah.
I definitely
so we both would have the over. So we both have the over. The UCF total is 27.5, so Nick and me would both take the over. And then the UNC total is 20.5, so Nick has just right on the UNC total. He has that 20 points, so he would take the under. I would take the over for UNC, which honestly I'm not in love with. UNC's offense does not really get me going. But we'll see. We'll see how good this UCF defense really is this Saturday. All right, this has been Charge Arms by FanDuel. We will see you on Saturday.